Today on the Terrors of Tubi podcast, we check out Mortuary, the 1983 slasher starring a very young Bill Paxton. Yes, that Bill Paxton from Apollo 13, Twister, Aliens, Predator 2, and my favorite, Near Dark. Now, by the time of Mortuary's release, the market had already been saturated with slasher movies. In fact, there had been 3 Friday the 13th movies and 3 movies of the Halloween franchise released as well. But in January 1983, Mortuary was listed in the top 20 highest grossing films across the country. So is this movie a diamond in the rough? Is it a forgotten favorite? Is it just like a simple flash in the pan that never sustained enough heat through the years? Listen in as we discuss our watch of Mortuary, streaming on Tubi now.
Calling all scream queens, gore hounds, video nasties, and final girls. Turn up the lights and turn on the horror as we explore Tubi's frightening video vaults with the Terrors of Tubi podcast. No one is safe as we hit horror history, commentary, and more with your hosts, the Terror Squad.
Right.
Okay, well, I don't get that.
Well, all of us pulling up the movie to check the first thing.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a podcast, only a podcast, only a podcast.
Welcome to the Terrors of Tubi podcast. We are your humble hosts. Only 2 of us tonight. I'm Ryan and
I'm Joe.
we are here to cover the movie Mortuary from 1983. So, Joe, let's just get into this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this right off the bat, and I've been holding out on you because I didn't want to admit this, but when you asked me what movie should we do, and I said Mortuary, I was actually thinking of the movie Mausoleum.
Oh, man. I had questions.
Which is not my fault. Mausoleum, Mortuary, they're both released in the same year. I mean, come on, man.
That's
But there are positive aspects to this movie.
yeah, no, it's not a complete loss. I know we talked about what was the one from the 90s that was just the Shrieker.
The Shrieker.
Oh man. Yeah, I couldn't even think of the name of it. It was
Shrieker.
This was not as bad as that one.
No, this really wasn't.
Which, again, funny enough, Nina disagrees and says she enjoyed Shrieker because it reminds her of Goosebump books, which cracks me up.
That's funny. I mean, I guess she kind of has a point there, but
it does feel like a bad Goosebump or like Are You Afraid of the Dark story.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's 90 minutes and shouldn't be. But anyway, all right, back to this one. Back to this one.
Let's do the logline. We'll do the synopsis, and then I want to break into a little bit of the history on this movie to kind of build some context as to why we watch this movie, but also like why you might want to watch this movie.
Sure.
And then we can kind of just go into like what we like, what we dislike. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Did you want to do ratings first?
Oh yeah, let's do ratings. You want to go or you want me to go?
You go first.
Okay. So as far as ratings go, man, I don't we usually rate on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. As far as like an individual watch goes, I'd probably unfortunately put this on like a 4, probably. I feel bad for saying that, but I would. And then for a group watch, if I were to watch it with a group, I'd probably go out of 5. And that's only because the plot like doesn't really matter in this movie. It's kind of all over the place. And so you are really watching it for like the Bill Paxton effect or sort of the ridiculousness of some of the other things. And there's also like, it pulls from a lot of other movies. So you can like look at this movie and go, oh, they did that in, Happy Birthday to Me or, whatever. So it's like,
yeah, see,
there's like a
and
lot of fun, silly things to point to.
And that's more your jam than mine because I don't always pick up on all of that. But as far as ratings go, I don't want to dwell on this one too much. I think I'm just going to agree with you. 4 for individual, 5 for group. Group's a little bit, like you said, more fun because you might just happen to look up and something weird or funny is going on. But yeah.
Okay. So as far as the logline goes, you want to do a logline or you want me to?
I will take a crack at it, but this is a little bit of a weird movie, so I'll probably have you touch it up. I would say logline is our heroine or female protagonist is suspicious about the circumstances of her father's recent death and begins to investigate with her boyfriend, Greg.
Yeah, that's great. The only thing I would add would be like, while the creepy mortician's son keeps close tabs on her investigation, which he kind of does, but not really also. He's more like just like making weird, creepy sexual advances on her. Yeah.
And I mean, and again, to the audience, this is why this one's so weird. You could throw in, and, our our protagonist suspects her mother may be plotting against her to her demise, to, gaslighting her essentially. That could be part of the log line, because there was just like a bunch of different, I don't even know if they were intentional red herrings or not. It's like,
I think it was.
Okay.
I think it was, it's sort of like the mystery thriller or mystery slasher, but just not thought out thoroughly, maybe. I mean, it could be a victim of like cuts made by the distributor, but I don't know. I'm not sure. But that's a question that I'm not sure about, because there's a lot of talent. Well, not a huge amount, but there is quite a bit of talent behind the camera on this. Like the people making this movie, for the most part, the crew has made movies before this. The talent in front is new. Like Paxton, this is like his second movie, and this is like Linda Day George. She did she's really popular from the Mission Impossible series in the 70s, and she got nominated for an Emmy and a Golden Globe for that show. Like she's legit. She just didn't do a lot of movies, and so this is
and that's the mom, right?
Movie. That's our main character's mom. Who's just running around with the cult.
Yep.
But I mean, there's some brain power here. It's not like they're all idiots and they're not running around in their backyard.
I don't know if people can hear, but there are sirens in the background. I am not involved. I guess I should call out to the audience. If you have the burning desire to watch Mortuary without it being ruined, we're about to ruin it. So
we are about to ruin it. So
stop listening.
But also, I think the movie kind of ruins it early on too.
Very, very early on, to the point where you're like, surely this is a twist. Surely.
There should be an extra red herring in there, because they reveal the killer. I think very loud. They don't hide him.
No,
they slap some paint on his face, but I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
All right, so the synopsis of this movie. Dr. Parson is beaten and drowned in his pool. No one sees this happen, and it's assumed to be an accident by everyone except his daughter, Christy. Weeks later, Christy's boyfriend, Greg, and his friend Josh break into a mortuary warehouse. Josh was fired by his boss, the local mortician, Hank Andrews, and Josh plans on recuperating unpaid wages by stealing tires from the warehouse. Greg and Josh see Mr. Andrews at the warehouse performing an occult ritual with a group of women, one of whom is Christy's mother. Dun, dun, dun. While Greg keeps an eye out, Josh goes to load the tires in his car, but he's killed by a mysterious cloaked figure. Greg doesn't know what happened to Josh. He and Chrissy look for Josh, but they're always one step behind. Chrissy has her suspicions, and she believes that the group of occultists is responsible for her father's death, and they may have killed Josh as well. Greg and Chrissy are trying to figure out what's going on, but nighttime visits from the same cloaked figure, along with sexual advances towards Christy from Mr. Andrews' son Paul, seem to complicate matters. What is the connection between the occultists, the cloaked figure, and the death of Christy's father? Is Paul Andrews an enemy or just a misunderstood weirdo? Question mark.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, there we go. That's a great synopsis. I think you almost need to examine the characters and explain who they are to get anything out of this movie as far as listening to this podcast. So real quick, Christy's our main character. She's got a boyfriend, Greg. Christy's
She's the final girl.
Yeah. And so that was actually that. As I totally deviate from what I just announced was my plan. One of the questions I had for you, Rye, because you have a better, I think, grasp of history of horror. Was this pretty early on for the slasher element? Because that's something I commented to Nina, because she was my fiance. She watched this with me, and she was asking, because it was kind of a grind to get through, and she was like, besides Halloween, there weren't a lot of slashers before this one came out. And I was like, oh, that's actually not a bad point, but I can't tell you for sure if that's accurate or not.
So actually, this is after a glut of a shit ton of slashers that came out. Yeah. So this is catching the tail end. So, and this actually played into the advertising of this movie, which is kind of amazing. So let's, if you don't mind, I'm going to hop into that real quick, and then we can go right back.
No. I brought the question up
because this is what's so interesting about this movie. So the poster, the thumbnail on Tubi is amazing, right? That's a fantastic thumbnail. It is. And that's the poster that was released with this movie. But it literally has nothing to do with the movie. Literally no one's buried in this movie. No. If anything, they're embalmed and kept in a warehouse, and it's very strange.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be early Reanimator or something, people coming back from the dead.
Right. So the other thing about this movie is that it was released on sort of the tail end of like a huge mass of slashers to come out. So obviously Halloween was the big one to kind of make slashers famous. But then right after Halloween, just like a ton of slashers came out because they were so cheap and so easy to make. And so all these people were just releasing them one after the other. And by the time this movie came out, and so it was released actually regionally in Arizona in 1982. And then picked up for national distribution in North America for 1983. And so what they did was the big distributor, which was, oh gosh, I can't remember the name. It was like
Film Ventures International.
Yes, thank you. Film Ventures International. They did two things for the advertising. They obviously released that poster, and then they released a trailer, like a 1-minute trailer that has literally nothing to do with the movie. And the trailer is literally one shot. It might be two. But it's basically just like a slow push in on him from behind him while he buries someone in a grave. And then literally there's a sting of music and a hand rises from the grave and pulls him into it. And then that's it. And it's like they do the tagline from the poster and that's the whole thing. So you're led to believe like this is a zombie movie because they were trying to hide the fact that they had yet another slasher to release on people. And so there was a whole like advertising push to not even show you that this movie was a slasher and that it was like something entirely different because so many slashers had come out basically at this point.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
So, yeah. Okay. You want to keep talking about characters?
Yeah. Let's kind of get into it a little bit. Right. So, we have, like we said, we have Christy, we have her boyfriend, Greg. They're kind of like the two that are like most central to this on like the protagonist side. Right. And they're, I don't know. Now that I'm saying that, I don't know if I want to do it this way. It's just, it's so all over the place, this movie. It's like topsy-turvy. Yeah.
I would say this movie is a mix of different genres. Like I think the goal here was to sort of create something that stands out from the usual slasher because they were throwing in, the cult. And then they were throwing in like sort of like a haunting from the dad's ghost, right? And then there was like kind of like some weird goofy humor sprinkled in there too. And you're just like, it's all over the place. And I should say that the filmmaking team, a wife and husband, the wife wrote the movie, the husband directed the movie, and the wife actually plays the boyfriend's mother in the movie too. Okay. And so they made this movie together and then they sold it obviously to the bigger distributor. Probably could have gone through a few more drafts maybe, I guess. I don't know. Seems like they were kind of in a rush.
Yeah, the film opens up with the death of the father, right? The death of Christy's father. And it's Christy, right, that runs out on the balcony to like see him like in the pool. Yeah. And, Christy's father gets bludgeoned, gets tossed into this pool. This is like within the first, 1 minute or less of the movie. And Christy comes storming out on the balcony to see him in the pool, which is hilarious because then she runs to the edge of the balcony before remembering, oh shit, there's no way for me to get down there. And then like turning back around and like just being absolutely helpless. Probably could have saved her father's life, to be frank, because it didn't look like he got clubbed that hard. Then after that, it just cuts to Josh and, what's the boyfriend's name?
Greg.
Thank you. I keep wanting to call him George. Just stealing tires from a warehouse because Josh was fired for witnessing an occult seance of the mortuary he worked for. The director was holding a seance. Josh witnessed it, so he fired him and refused to pay him his back wages. So Josh says, well, you know what? I know there's tires at this warehouse and I'm gonna go steal them. So he co-ops Greg into this. They go to the warehouse. They find the tires. They start exploring a little bit. They completely miss the fact that there is a body in a coffin or in a casket. They walk around and they see another seance that Greg then witnesses, freaks him out. He goes back to find Josh, who in the meantime has been stabbed to death and I think tossed in another casket. But this is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. Greg sees that the van is no longer there because for whatever reason, the killer has decided to steal Josh's van. And Greg's conclusion is, Josh ditched me. He must be at the roller rink. So sure as shit, he grabs Christy. They go to the roller rink. They look around. They see the van is there, which I found even funnier, to be honest. Like, even the killer hangs out at the roller rink. It was like, okay, like everyone's at the roller rink apparently, which I don't know. That kind of cracked me up. So they go inside, they look for Josh, can't find him. They go back outside, the van's gone. So the killer's no longer vibing at the roller rink and, go to school the next day, No one knows where Josh is. We get our first experience of Bill Paxton as the creepy Phil, who approaches Christy and asks her if she likes Mozart. Super weird. Tries to get her to like come over and jam with him on some albums, and she just kind of laughs it off and treats him like he's harmless, even though he clearly is not harmless. And Greg laughs it off, and they go on their merry way, still wondering whatever happened to Josh. I don't know. And then the movie just kind of keeps going on this weird path where like
just keeps going.
It really does. Like at one point, fairly soon after that scene, and I am jumping around a little bit, but Christy's sleeping, but then she wakes up because she might be being haunted by her dead father. And she's also sleepwalking. So she sleepwalks out to the pool, and like, I can't remember. Do we see the killer then? We don't, right? No, we do, right?
We do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So at that point, we see the killer who somehow divined in some magical way that she might be sleepwalking by the pool. Like, I didn't understand that part. Like, he just happens to be waiting for her, but she's in her own weird somatic trance. She snaps out of it with the help of her mother, goes back to bed. Then I don't know, pick it up from here. I mean, this movie just like...
Well, okay, so let's talk about the killer too, because we've seen the killer's face a couple times by this point. Yeah. The way it's painted, he looks like Pazuzu from The Exorcist. Remember when they do that quick shot of him in the dark? It's like, it's exactly that. You know what I mean? It's there's not much like creativity, I guess, when they came to their killer, with the exception of, I guess, he works in a mortuary, and I don't know if there's many mortuary movies before this, but like, that's really about it. Like, there's not much to him. And they hang on his face a lot. So you see him, like, there's only like two people from the mortuary that, you know what I mean? Or that it could possibly be. And I don't know. They're very different people. One is very old and one is very young. So it's kind of easy to tell. And
we should note that while he bludgeoned Christy's father, he killed Josh with the embalming needle, right?
Right.
So we know that whoever this is has access to an embalming needle, which again kind of narrows down who it could be to really two people, the father and son working at the mortuary. I mean, unless someone just happened to steal an embalming needle, I guess it's possible, but
I don't know. I mean, up to this point, I don't know that many movies that have obviously revealed the main baddie early on and then can continue sort of a thrilling third act, something to really kind of bring it home. Except for the movie Alice, Sweet Alice, and they reveal the killer actually kind of earlier in the movie, and then the movie keeps going, right? And so they have a scene in that movie where it's like, oh, this should be done, and then it keeps going, and then it really wraps on like a really cool scene. And I feel like this movie, I wish this movie had done that. Instead, it went a different direction, and it kind of went with like, him, Bill Paxton, obviously, our murderer, having like some sort of like psychosexual type of thing. They're stealing a little bit from Psycho, having his mother embalmed. Well, not embalmed, because the big surprise at the end is that she stands up screaming, and then they freeze frame, which is like typical of that era too. They do a lot of freeze frames.
I love the freeze frame. That's fine. I was like, by that time, I was like,
that's
why
classic
not?
80s, man. Classic 80s horror.
I was like, screw it, lean into it. That's let's do it. Let's do it.
But even that, like the party, I'm sorry, not the party, the wedding scene where he has like all the bodies like around him. That's again, like I said earlier, that's from Happy Birthday to Me. Like, it's already been done. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's all they're doing is they're kind of taking a bunch of stuff that's already been done and mashing it together into this thing and hoping that it stands out. But I think it doesn't carry enough juice to it. Like, it just doesn't have that suspense, right? Yeah,
like, and it's not that this was filmed poorly or anything like that. It's just it was filmed quite well, but like the story is just so flat that, I'm going to do a favor to the audience and just tell you the story, the big parts are dad dies in the beginning. Josh is killed is kind of a big part. And then truly you can jump to when Bill Paxton kills Christy's mother. And this is, the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie. We jump to Christy's mother telling Christy that Bill Paxton is insane and that Christy's father, who was a therapist, was actually treating him and had him committed to a mental institution. And that Bill Paxton was obsessed with Christy and had asked the father if he could marry her. Despite, very little interaction as far as I can tell socially between Christy and Bill Paxton's character. And so we find that out. Christy's like, oh, that's fucking weird. Then mom and daughter decide to just go back to bed after that big reveal, which was kind of funny. So, and this was after, but I should mention to the audience, an encounter that very same night of Bill Paxton trying to attack Christy outside the home. And Christy is opposite him inside the home through a window, and she's in a somatic trance, and she tries to stab him with a knife during her somatic trance. So then they go to a kitchen scene. They have that explanation of, Bill Paxton is a nutso. And then they're like, all right, let's go to bed. Like, ain't no one calling the cops at this point or something? No? All right, we're going to bed. So the mother Bill Paxton gets inside, stabs the mother to death, kidnaps Christy and brings her to the mortuary because she's going to be his beloved, his
forever
betrothed.
Bride.
Yeah, his forever bride. There's very much, it's like, oh, is he going to embalm her? That's kind of like his plan. His dad confronts him and tries to stop him. Bill Paxton's dad confronts him and tries to stop him. Bill Paxton stabs the dad to death. We never find out why the dad was holding occult seances or if that mattered or didn't. I guess that was just his jam. So red herring, that didn't go anywhere. Then Greg, the boyfriend, shows up at the mortuary trying to figure out where Christy is. He gets locked into a room. Then Bill Paxton, proceeds to take Christy to that final scene that you talked about, back to the warehouse where Josh was murdered. And there's the wedding scene set up where there's a bunch of embalmed bodies. Bill Paxton's dad, Christy's mom is witnessing, Christy's dad is witnessing, and then we have Bill Paxton's mom that's also a witness, and that's they're all set up for this big wedding. But that last 20 minutes is really the movie.
Except you missed one pivotal scene, Joe, where Bill Paxton skips through a cemetery.
Yeah, it's actually a great point. I completely forgot that he was at the cemetery, and I actually made a comment to Nina about this. He has flowers to put on his mother's grave,
right. And
he takes one of the flowers and gives it to Christy as like a token of affection. And I was just fucking dying laughing right there. I was like, man, this dude is like so creepy and like also so out of touch on like how inappropriate that is, that like you have flowers for someone's tombstone, right. Yeah. And you gave one of them to the girl that you're trying to like court. I don't know. That was pretty funny.
And I think that really brings home the point of why you watch this movie. You watch it for Bill Paxton's performance. That's what you do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
And if you don't, I guess if anyone's listening here that's like really, really young and doesn't know Bill Paxton's performances, like he's literally been in like all of like major movies to, set up our pop culture currently today. He fought a Terminator. He's fought Xenomorph from the Aliens. He's fought the Predator. He was in Twister in the 90s.
Twister.
You know what I mean?
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So Bill Paxton is the man. He's done a lot of he's never done like a crazy performance, maybe Frailty, maybe, but he's always been a dependable actor, right? Like he's always showing up and doing the job, and he does a good job. And that's what I like about him. Yeah,
he does.
Yeah. And so this movie is a nice little thing. You go, oh, look at little young Bill Paxton, doing crazy. And that's what he's doing. And he's having a hell of a lot of fun doing it too. Like he's just kind of acting like a wackadoodle, and it's fun to see him do that. But I think that's really the only draw for me.
Yeah. And honestly, before I found out that there was a mistake made and I was supposed to watch Mausoleum and not Mortuary, when I saw that Bill Paxton was in this movie, when I was looking it up beforehand, I was like, oh, this must be why I'm watching this. This is why Ryan picked this, because this is early Bill Paxton, and we're gonna have zany good times.
Yeah. So there you go. You had an okay time.
It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, it's really better as a group watch to poke fun at it for sure. Like to sit there and take it in seriously. That's a hard one to do for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very early 80s, and it just wasn't scary, you know?
No,
and
it wasn't scary.
And that's fine, but like I didn't even feel like there was an effort to build tension. Things were just kind of, like I said, the story itself was very flat for me. It felt like things were just kind of happening in sequence until we got to the end. And like any attempts at like red herrings or anything, I was more just like, a red herring should make you kind of want to know more. And I never got like any misdirection or anything like that from it. You know, it was just like pointless side story versus red herring.
Right. And even some, like, there could have been some cool ones too, like with the ghost, like that wasn't wrapped up. And like, that could have been actually really interesting. Like if the ghost of the dad came through in the end to like help out or something like that. Like that would have been interesting. But
and,
you know, it is what it is.
Or even just the fact that like they could have leaned in a little more on the fact that Christy is now having these weird, you know, I keep saying somatic, and I realize that's the wrong term for sleepwalking. Every reference I've made to somatic, ignore. It does start with an S, but I can't think of the scientific name for sleepwalking right now. But like that started after her father died, right?
Yeah,
and so it's clearly some kind of unresolved trauma there, and you know, that never got resolved at all. Like she was waking up and like, but sleepwalking. And to your point about her dad's ghost, there could have been some potential paranormal thing going on, you know, for her sleepwalking, not just a traumatic response, but also her father communing with her. And that the only way he could reach her is while she was still asleep, you know? Yeah. So.
I also like to point out that the mortuary guy, played by Christopher George, he has that really like smoker's voice where he's just like, rah, rah, rah. And Bill Paxton comes in with like this heavy hillbilly accent. And I'm like, well, are you the same family?
Yes.
What is going on there?
Oh man. Yeah. Somnambulism. I had to look it up.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah. That was really bothering me. I needed to know somnambulism.
So another thing about this movie that I think is actually really interesting is that like it looks really good. So like the budget was like 800 to 900K. It's somewhere in that range, right?
Okay.
But it looks really, really good. And the reason for that is that the cinematographer behind the movie was actually quite a prolific cinematographer. And he was the cinematographer for Orson Welles in the last 6 years of his life. So he did like all the Orson Welles projects before Orson Welles died. And he did a ton of stuff for American International. And
AIP.
AIP, yeah. So he comes to this movie like knowing how to make movies and knowing how to shoot movies quickly and on the cheap, and it works really well. Like there are some really good shots in this movie, especially with like where they throw it on the dolly track and they're going back and forth in the warehouse, or like near the end where Christy's like running back and forth in front of the house, the exterior shot there where it's tracking her. Like there's some really beautiful shots in this movie. I have to give props to that guy. He's since passed away, but he had like 240 projects he worked on, which is just wild to me. So
guy just liked to work.
He just liked to work. And it's true though. He did, because he actually like, as soon as he kind of hits the 90s, he starts working on like Skinamax type of movies, which is really funny. But like, but it's just because he liked to work. He was working on anything and everything. So it's like, you know, go good for him.
No, I mean, and that's cool when you can find people like that, because they can really, for the filmmakers out there, if you can find someone that's just really dedicated to the craft and working, you can get stuff like that where like maybe you don't have the greatest storyline, maybe you don't have all the pieces put together, but if you can find someone like that who's just really would rather be working than sitting on the couch, I mean, it's a great time to grab someone like that, and if you're lucky, and they can really step up your project. So that's neat that he's willing to do that too, because you do, you know, on the flip side of it, and I'm certainly not going to name names because I mean it's neither here nor there. It's just how you like to do it. I mean, some people won't work on a project unless they're convinced it's going to win an Oscar, you know? Right. And if you have that established career, that's your choice, and you're more than entitled to feel that way. You don't want to have your name attached to a movie that might get a Ryan and Joe score of 4 or 5 out of 10, you know? But on the other side of it, if you're just really talented and you're willing to like use those talents, you know, for just things that come your way so that you keep working, you know, it's nice for filmmakers to find that. I don't know. I think it's cool.
No, I agree. So I don't have much else on this thing, except as far as like the budget goes, it kind of did it really well, surprisingly. I found the American Film Institute, or actually it was the American Film market, pardon me, they listed this hitting the national release. And apparently they found some article that said that in the initial LA release that weekend, it made like $2 million. It made over $2 million, which is really good for, an $800,000 movie. And the final box office was like 4.3 million total, which is really good. They did a really good job. So I'm surprised there wasn't a sequel that was made, but maybe it was just because the slasher things had been played so much at this point that they kind of just were like, well, there's not a whole lot of originality to this idea. So we're just going to kind of like take our winnings and move on.
I did see that box office success, and I thought that was pretty impressive. I mean, that's one of the fun things about horror movies is, they're cheap to make and people will go see them if you can get them distributed, And so that's cool that it did make that much. I was actually going to ask you, because when I got on Tubi, I saw there was another Mortuary on there, and I was curious if that was a remake or just someone else also used the name Mortuary.
Totally different movie. That one's by Toby Hooper. From 2005 or 2006. I can't remember which year, but that's a totally different movie. Okay. They did not remake it. I guess some people who are fans of the movie have asked to have a remake, but I don't know.
The shit thing is because it's a simple premise, right? It's just the creepy guy at the mortuary is the obsessed like wannabe lover, that slasher, and that comes off as just like the harmless weirdo, but isn't. They didn't execute that well, but that premise is a pretty simple execution. So you could do a remake and I think really improve on this story.
Yeah, you could,
because it's not a complex story, and I think you could throw in the red herrings and the occult a little more and things like that to make it seem like maybe it's the father of Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton. Yeah, I can't think of his name, but
Christopher George.
Yeah, thank you. It make you feel like it's Christopher George and Christy's mother gaslighting her, and maybe you work in something like, since the dad was a psychotherapist, maybe he has a lot of money. I mean, they're in a big house, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Maybe you work into the plot line that there's this suspicion that maybe they're gaslighting her so that they can commit her and steal her inheritance or something like that, which is like a little like not House on Haunted Hill, but kinda, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of that feeling to it where you're intentionally driving someone insane to obviously take advantage of them financially, but then that's the red herring. Like maybe that's not actually happening,
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Like I'm just surprised they didn't deliver, because that was such an easy like layup to deliver, and they didn't do it. So I know for a remake, I think you could do something like that. Like the bones are there, but that's like saying, hey, you know what makes a good movie? Slashers. Like, I mean, that's the bones of this movie, right? So
right, that's true. That's a very good point.
So like, I mean, I don't want to pretend like they reinvented the wheel and just didn't execute. To your point, I didn't realize this, but apparently there had already been a glut of slasher movies. They were on the tail end and they were like, fuck it, want to make another? So.
Right. And don't get me wrong, there were still slasher movies coming out for sure, but they really had sort of like hit this like max saturation of slashers while they're making this movie. I think they made it in like, they started production in like 81, but it's an indie, so it takes a while. And so they weren't able to release until end of 82 regionally. And then it didn't actually get a national release until the end of 83. I'm sure when they made this, maybe they had a few more original things going on in it. And it just like more movies kept coming out and the other people had similar ideas, and you know what I mean? Because I was looking up other slashers that came out that year, and the movie Pieces, which also stars Christopher George and his wife Linda, they're also in that movie. And then there was Sleepaway Camp, with the huge hit Sleepaway Camp, which wasn't a huge hit at the time, but it was that's a cult favorite. Which I don't know if you've ever seen that movie or not. But
I haven't, but I've heard of Sleepaway Camp. So.
That's a wacky movie. We should watch that sometime because I would like to hear your reaction to that one. You don't know this?
Is it on Tubi though?
Sleepaway Camp is on Tubi. Okay, so we will include, you know what I'll do? I'll include the original trailer for Mortuary in the show notes, as well as a few articles if you're still interested and you want to, read up more on it. I'll post those down below. Definitely watch the original trailer because it is so funny to watch that and then see this movie and you're like, these don't connect whatsoever. But I do think honestly, like, they did such a good job with the advertising as far as the poster and the trailer, because once this hits VHS, I bet you this thing just went years and years and years of created revenue because the poster was so cool. It just looks so awesome. So I'm sure people bought or rented or bought the movie thinking it was one thing and then obviously sat through something else. But I bet you that carried sales for a long time.
Yeah, and I've seen that poster before, just like on auction sites and things like that. And I truly assumed this was a zombie movie, or they were embalming people that were, or like, you know, the twist is they're going after people that are still alive and burying them alive as like some sadistic thing or something
just
like that.
Wacky 80s movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't. Yeah.
It was not.
Okay. So if you want to hang out with us and talk movies, if you want to hear more about other movies on Tubi that we love and hate, subscribe to our newsletter, Terrors of Tubi. The link will be in the description below, or check us out on social media. We are on YouTube. There will be an animated version of this podcast there. And check us out on Twitter. We're on Twitter. We're on Threads, and we're on Instagram. Is that all of them? Did I do them all?
Twitter, Threads, Instagram. I think that's everything.
Okay,
TikTok.
cool.
Are we on TikTok?
Oh, we are on TikTok. Yeah. Sorry. Follow us on TikTok too. Yeah. And definitely though, sign up for our newsletter because we are going to be doing weekly giveaways. So you might as well just sign up and get see if you can get something like free.
Yeah. And as always, let us know what you guys think. Let us know if you agree, disagree, if you end up watching Mortuary, or if you already have and want to call us out for giving it such a bad rating. If you guys have recommendations for other movies that maybe we don't know about. I mean, I love getting outside my comfort zone. So if anyone wants to hit us with movie recommendations, we'd love to hear them. We need some good Bill Paxton Twister memes if anyone can come up with it, but somehow bringing it into Mortuary.
That's a great idea. All right. That's it for this episode.
Yeah. Until next time, y'all, stay terrified.
Bye.